So what are the 10 tips for selection success? Well, first, define and communicate clear goals for your ERP project. What does the organization want from it? So how does the organization align, or how does the ERP project align to the company's strategic goals? This helps establish what's in it for me for the rest of the organization, which dovetails down into how will the organization benefit. People want to know what they're going to get out of the system and how what they're going to get out of the system fits into the overall organization's goals for either scalability or growth. What is the priority of the project? Oftentimes we find that companies have many projects going on at the same time, and so there may be other projects that are competing with the priority of the ERP project, which can make people within the organization feel like they're putting all this time into a project that isn't going to go anywhere. So it's really important to make sure that you're resolving any conflicting project priorities and that you're putting the ERP initiative as number one, because it is a big project and it's going to require a lot of time and commitment from your people. What is the anticipated budget and timeline? Again, making sure that you have a realistic budget and timeline set. Like I mentioned, a lot of companies expect that they're going to be able to go live and implement a system within 3 to 6 months. That is typically never the case unless you're a very small company. And even in those cases, it's more realistic if you want to have a successful implementation to look at something between 6 to 12 months if you're really doing your due diligence. And also the budget. Make sure that you have in mind a good realistic budget that is including every type of activity, project management, change management activities, business process management activities. Don't sell yourself short. Make sure that you've got a lot of time planned into the timeline for conference room testing pilots and for training to make sure that the timeline you present to your board is, again, realistic and that the cost associated with those activities is realistic. And then also make sure that you define who is in charge of the project. Typically, you want to have an executive sponsor, someone from that C-level who is endorsing this project, who's making sure that people are going to be available to participate, as well as you'll want a dedicated project manager to help manage the different tasks that need to happen throughout this process and make sure that deliverables are being met when they say they're going to be met. And then you also want to have a dedicated project team, those individuals, those A players that are the subject matter experts in each of your functional areas to help participate in the design and the blueprint of the new system so that you're setting it up exactly the way that you need it to be set up to run efficiently for your organization. Number 2, define business requirements in detail. Make sure to differentiate between current state and future state. You do want to focus and map out your current state processes so you have a baseline to go from, but during that process you want to also identify what are your opportunities to improve, what are your pain points today, and what can you request from the new system in terms of a requirement to help improve it in your future state. And define the what, not the how. So focus on what you need the technology to do and not how the technology is going to do it, because that is going to change and it's going to be different between different systems. You don't want to define a new system based on how you have your current system set up. That's probably not the right thing to do since you want to make a change. So you want to understand what needs to happen and why it needs to happen to make sure that you can define any non-value added steps and remove them, but and make sure that you define what the actual requirements are that you need the system to do, but don't focus so much on the how, because that will vary from vendor to vendor. And prioritize the deal breaker requirements. So as you're going through and defining the requirements for the new system, there are going to be those requirements that are mandatory that you absolutely need the system to do for you. You don't want to take a step backwards, and there are some things that you absolutely need to move forward with a new system. A good example is in the medical device industry. You want to make sure that the new system is FDA compliant, that you can keep patient information, perhaps, secure, so that it's HIPAA compliant. So there are things that you want to make sure the new system has, and you want to identify what those requirements are, because you want to then be able to, when you bring the vendors in to demonstrate, or when you ask them to respond to your proposals, that they can respond accordingly, and you understand what each system can and cannot do for you. And that helps in the overall selection piece of the project.